Welcome to another session from Mayah's Legacy. This time it's on self-love and self-compassion, and I'm your host for the session, Dr. Yvette Ankrah MBE. I was delighted to be asked to speak about this topic. I'd like you to take a moment to grab a pen, get a drink, close your tabs, put your mobile on silent, and give yourself this time. So, in our time together, we'll discover what self-love is and why you should practice it, the importance of self-compassion, and tips to bringing more self-love and self-compassion into your lives. So just a quick introduction from me. My name is Dr. Yvette Ankrah MBE and I am a transformational coach and speaker. And I also run an organisation called Leading with C.L.A.R.I.T.Y, which delivers coaching and training into organisations. My work is all about belief and behaviour change and helping people be the best they can be. I'm passionate about helping people avoid burnout and to really practice self-love and self-compassion. I've been supporting women in business for a long time, and I also have academic interests in belonging, race and identity. And my team consists of 9 other coaches and trainers at present. And this is a talk that I'm really pleased to give because it's so important for us to take care of ourselves. And my own journey has involved burnout, stress, overwhelm, and grief. So I do love being able to support others and help give back. I've spoken at a range of different events and featured in a range of different publications as well. So on top of my coaching training, I'm an international speaker. As I mentioned, I'm really passionate about helping people avoid burnout. Stress and overwhelm can lead to burnout, and it's a place I've been and support people to avoid going into that space. So today I'm talking to you about self-love. There's a love affair we do not often have, and it's with ourselves. So just tell me, when you look in the mirror, how many times do you criticise what you see? You know, the blemish, the wrinkle, grey hair, stretch marks? How many times do we look and just appreciate these different lumps and bumps and lines and freckles and moles, beauty spots that are on our bodies? This isn't just about our appearance, it's about thoughts we have about ourselves and how we look after ourselves. The idea of self-love may come across as corny or narcissistic to some, but practicing self-love is neither of these things. Developing love for ourselves enables us to thrive in so many ways. Loving ourselves is necessary for our well-being. The same can be said for creating self-compassion. How often do we speak to ourselves with kindness, with words that empower and uplift? We may well be ready to show compassion to others, but how do we show it for ourselves? When we haven't quite achieved what we wanted, or we're not doing as much as we believe those around us are doing. When sometimes the only thing we can do is stand still and breathe. How about showing yourself compassion? I think we do not often show ourselves enough love. We do not always speak to ourselves with kindness, compassion, or show caring for ourselves. We're quick to do it for so many others, but not so much for ourselves. Compassion is all about the awareness of the suffering of others and wishing to stop that suffering. So when we're talking about self-compassion, it's about doing this for ourselves. And it's really important that we look at this because of the impact it has on us in relation to stress and anxiety. So one of the things you find, particularly with women, is that we are more impacted by stress, 50% more than men. It has an impact on our health and well-being, physical, mental and emotional. And some of that comes from the expectations that others have of us, as well as those that we put on ourselves. So these are things that we pile on top of us, and also the words we use. We must, we have to, we should, we need to. We don't allow ourselves any space or grace to stop, think, say no at points. And what stress is stressful situations. So, for example, a deadline, something that happens. But it's also how we respond to that stress. That's mine's definition. So it's a two-part definition of stress. The thing that happens and our response to the thing that happens. And the last few years have shown us how much change can happen, how much stress can happen in our world. And we've seen all the different responses to those circumstances. For one person, that unexpected deadline is an annoyance, but they rise to the occasion. For another person, it may make them be filled with anxiety and dread. And that stress can really impact on us. It has an impact on our decision making, what we do in terms of how we manage it, for example, using unhelpful behaviours, from eating too much, spending too much, drinking too much, or not eating at all, to manage our stress. So it's important to understand what happens to yourself when you're stressed, how you respond, how you react, and how you can start to change that within yourselves. And some of those voices of the must do, should do, have to, it's all on me, the worry, the anxiety, some of those voices, we have the ability to change what they're saying and change how they impact us. We always have choice. And we can decide to have different stories and different voices in our heads. And some of those voices can be really negative and quite cold and quite cutting. So this is about creating a new relationship with ourselves, and one that is loving, caring, kind and compassionate. Now what researchers have discovered is that people who practice self-love and self-compassion are more resilient, less prone to anxiety and stress, and have improved health outcomes. So given that the world is probably not going to get any less stressful, by being able to bring these practices into your world, you are able to better cope with what comes your way. So there was a group of researchers led by a woman called C.L.A.R.I.T.Y, and her team also found that self-compassion, the practice of self-kindness, consistently reduces the strength of the relationship between maladaptive perfectionism and depression to both adolescents and adults. So it actually changes the relationships that we have with some of these issues that come up into our lives. So that practice of self-love and self-compassion is not one that's indulgent, it's one that's necessary for our well-being. So self-love is not just a feeling or acknowledging that you love yourself. It's not that, oh, I'm amazing and awesome. It's not that. It's the practices that support your mind, body and soul every day. So for me, self-care and self-love are the same thing. You start caring for yourself, and you start showing yourself the love you give to others, and you look after your needs. This is not about being selfish, it is about truly connecting to who you are and allowing yourself to be nourished and to thrive every single day. It is a tool that has been proven to help support the management of stress, anxiety and help build resilience, as I mentioned. Now, some more researchers, Germer and Neff's book on self-compassion is one I recommend as well, list 3 components of self-compassion. So to practice self-compassion, it's about kindness, a sense of common humanity, and mindfulness. So let's take kindness. Self-kindness is about how we treat ourselves when we fall or fail or do not feel we've lived up to our dreams, and being understanding to ourselves in those moments. We are not perfect. We are going to fail, we're going to fall, things are going to happen, and we may feel that we just don't know what to do. And when we're sitting in that space, it's okay to cry and be sad and upset and have that. But then once you've gone through that, it's moving into, so how do I help myself get up? And falling down isn't the issue. It's what do you need to help yourself get up again? And that's where some of that talking to yourself with kindness can really come in. Rather than, this thing happened, so it means I am not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not, clever enough, whatever it is. And you probably wouldn't say that to somebody you cared about. So how else would you speak to yourself in a moment when you're down, to lift yourself back up again? The common humanity part is all about recognising that we are imperfect, and that we're not alone in the things that we find challenging, or the idea that it's only you that is suffering, and that it's only you that can experience this particular feeling. And this can leave you feeling very isolated and lonely, and not knowing that others share those thoughts and feelings just as you do. Imperfection is more normal than anything else. It's part of being human. And when you're going through something, having a community of people that understand that can be incredibly important, because they get you. They get what you've gone through, they understand it, and you're not alone. And often we feel that way because we think no one else can possibly understand what we're going through, and there's probably a lot more people who understand than you may think in that moment. The last bit of this is about mindfulness. Now this is not about ignoring that pain or upset you feel, as I said, when you're in that pit, when you're in that space, but it's providing a compassionate response to those emotions. It's about acknowledging that you sometimes need to comfort yourself before you take action. So be with those emotions. It's not about suppressing them, it's about experiencing them, working through them, maybe having someone to talk to about them, not ignoring them. This is not positive thinking. Yes, we're going to be happy all the time. No, it's okay to cry, it's okay to sit in that space sometimes. And then what do you need? How do you move forward? How do you get up? By bringing in self-love and self-compassion into your life and daily activities, you can change how you respond to difficult situations. It helps alter your perspective and enables you to bounce back in times of adversity. So the more you practice this, the easier it is for you to deal with issues that come into your world. And that's how you build the resilience. As I said, it's not the falling down, it's how you get back up, your bounce back ability, your ability to come through in times of crisis. So, I'd like to give you some self-compassion and self-care tips. So the first one is listen to how you speak to yourself. How do you talk to yourself? In those moments, those particular moments when you fail or do not meet your expectations, think about the words you use, the language you use to speak to yourself. For example, calling yourself stupid when you've made a mistake. Now, the practice here is to listen to how you speak to yourself, catch those words, and think, would I say that to my best friend? Would I say that to somebody I loved really dearly? Would I do that? And if you wouldn't do that for someone else, don't do it to yourself. So this is a practice of you stopping and acknowledging how you speak to yourself. So the next is about changing that inner conversation. So when practicing kindness, it's about changing the nature of our inner conversation, to leave out judgment and anger in moments where we may have not lived up to our expectations. So the language is one thing, so notice what's going on, and then now you've noticed it, now you're aware of it. How can you change that? How can you change the way you speak to yourself? What can you do? So you've heard that sentence in your head, how can you then say, okay, how would I change that conversation? And the no more rabbit holes. When you're practicing self-compassion, it helps you stop going down that rabbit hole of worry. It's all about me. No one else has these problems. I'm the only one suffering. And as you go down that hole, you sink deeper and deeper into that space and feel more isolated and more alone. It helps you to recognise that others do have these experiences too. And you can be connected to others because you share these experiences. You are not alone. So as soon as you start feeling that you're going down that rabbit hole, come back up to the light and think, there's other people that are sharing this. Reach out to a community, reach out to somebody. That really helps. Or journal, write it down. Find a way to stop going down that path so you feel less isolated. And then acknowledging emotions before taking intentional action. I'm a big fan of intentional action. Really being true to what you want to have come out of this. So this is about acknowledge that you're upset, angry or sad, whatever that emotion is. Own it, acknowledge it. Say it out loud if you need to. We often think there are positive and negative emotions. They're just emotions, and they're there to tell you something. So it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad. We are not going to be happy and joyful every minute of the day. It's also okay to be happy and joyful, because sometimes people think we can't display those emotions for fear of what people will think. You're allowed to engage and display and acknowledge all of your emotions. But when you're in that space where you're upset, and it might be that sadness, that anger, etc., sit down and lick those wounds. Sit there and be in that little space for a bit and say, okay, that didn't go too well. That wasn't what I had planned. But pick yourself up again and it starts to change. And if in that moment you don't feel great about things, that's okay. I often talk about failing forward. Things happen, they don't go well, but then how do you make it better the next time? How do you move through things the next time something happens? And this may be whatever it is. Some things you don't want to happen more than once in your life. But it's the next disappointment, the next hurt, the next sadness. How do you go through that and then still stand at the end of it? And that's about failing forward, whatever you feel you have not done well in. How do you use that to help you move through? And in those moments when you're sat there and not in a great space, that self-compassion comes in to say, we all have times we don't feel great. We all have times where we fall and we fail, but we still treat ourselves with compassion. We care about our own suffering just as much as we would care about anybody else's. And with mindfulness, we don't stay in these negative emotions or wallow. We deal with the difficult feelings and give them space, but then move through them. So that's how you find that way to get back up again. And self-care plans. This is something that I advocate for people to have and to do. And your self-care plans are your rituals and behaviours that support your well-being. So this can range from exercise to calling a friend, to walking in nature, to prayer, to volunteering, to doing something that just makes you smile. And self-care is often seen as a very solo and selfish thing. It really isn't, because part of self-care is connection to others, because by supporting others we also make ourselves feel good. But these are the things you're going to do on a daily basis that help nourish and support you. It could be a very simple thing like drinking water on a daily basis. A part of your plan could be increase my hydration. Being dehydrated has a huge impact on your well-being. So those are the things that I would advocate putting in place. If you have stopped doing something that makes you smile, can you bring it back in again? Can you do that thing that helps you feel good on a daily basis? So taking the time to add these into your life enables you to thrive and respond differently when faced with adversity and to experience different outcomes. A good place to start is to just be kinder to yourself. So I would say, please take some time to show yourself some love and compassion every single day. So what will you do to show that self-compassion and self-love for you? Thank you for taking the time to take part in this talk on self-love and self-compassion. If you'd like to keep in touch or find out more about what I do, feel free to reach out on these platforms or contact me directly.